Hey, what's up, everyone? How you doing? Look at that. It's yoga class 189. How did we get here? I've got something on my computer and it says turn on reactions. I don't even know what that means. I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to leave it. Feel free to comment and say hi. It'd be nice to hear from you. And welcome if you've made it this far. I've got my fire on today. It's a bit chilly again, isn't it? I've got my cup of tea. I've just come back from Scotland. I was in Scotland for a day or 2 nights, and I was having some work done on my camper van. So I'm back in Leicester. So I got back about an hour ago. Welcome. That's why I'm drinking tea probably. What I thought we'd do today is I thought we would do something a little bit different. Maybe we've done it before, but not this year. Some postures in a chair or on a stool. So you can see behind me, look, I've got my 3-legged stool, which is not the best thing to practice yoga on, I warn you, especially because one of my legs has a tendency to collapse now and again. So if you see me fall off my stool, that'll probably be the best bit of the class, to be fair. But we'll see what happens. But if you've got a chair and you want to join me in some of the postures in a chair, then feel free. Something that you're comfortable on. Chair yoga, what we generally do is we practice with something that's got a back on it to kind of support our spine. But if you feel comfortable on something like that, go for it. And if you don't want to use a chair for any of this practice, that's all right as well, because we'll kind of look at the poses in different kind of guises, different forms, different versions. And it will be a bit fluid, I guess, this class, because it's a bit of an experiment for me as well. So take what you can from it. I've got this new book, and I say I've been reading it. I'll be honest with you, I haven't been reading it because I only got it the other day, and then I went up to Scotland. But it's called Get Fit Where You Sit, and it says an adaptive yoga practice for strength, stamina, balance, and flexibility. And we can get a little bit sniffy about practices like chair yoga, I think, because we kind of think, I don't need to do yoga in a chair, Dave. But some of us do, right? And even if we don't need to do them in a chair, some of the poses, I think there's wisdom. Wisdom is probably the wrong word, but I think it would probably be advantageous for us to explore some of these poses seated. So I'll do my best to kind of explain what pose we're coming into, obviously, and then give you the option which we'd normally do on the floor. But I am really conscious that probably quite a few people who join the class or have looked to join the class in the past don't do it because it's hard for some of us to get down on the floor, right? We might be working with a long-term injury, might be recovering from surgery. Our bodies sometimes are just not used to being down on the floor. We've got things going on with our knees, we've got things going on with our ankles, our hips. So you see someone doing yoga and you're like, it's not for me because I can't get into those postures. But I firmly believe that we can adapt our practice. And it doesn't mean that it's a lesser practice if we're practicing in the chair. I firmly believe that it's just a different version of a practice that we would probably be more familiar with, and something that puts us off because we think that's going to be too painful. So come with an open mind. I say that in a lot of my classes. And let's see where we go today. I should probably stop talking. That's 4 minutes. I'm going to have another bit of tea. Make sure you've got a drink. Make sure you're warm enough. It's a bit chilly today. So, remember that idea about warmth. And if we're not warm enough, or if we're too hot, it messes around with our nervous system. And then we're already battling our practice. I'm going to read this to you. And it's called Being Present. And it's by somebody called Dana Folds. And it's called Going In, Poems from the Heart of Yoga. And it says this, very simple: being present. Breathe, relax and feel. Take time to slow down the pace of life. Watch the rise and the fall of the moods, the birth and the death of dreams. Feelings and sensations seem so real, yet they shift like changing clouds and flow with the high tide out to sea again. Allow it all to be. No need to grasp or push away. Present with each moment the whole of you, body, mind, and soul. It opens to receive. Quite like that. You can look that up. I've not heard of Dana Folds before. Faulds, not Donna, Dana. And it's from Go In and In, Poems from the Heart of Yoga. I'll have to buy that one as well. All right, so I'm going to go back there and I'm going to sit on my stool. I'm going to take my book with me and we're going to do some poses from it. Now, if you want to sit directly on the floor, I'm sat on the floor at the moment. You can't see my lower body, but I promise you I'm not standing up right now. I am small, but here we go. I'll stand up now. So got a nice little place to rest my tea. So let's come to sit. I'm sitting very gingerly here. I need to invest in a proper stool, don't I? Can't do chair yoga and then have the risk of me collapsing down. Now you can just about see my feet. Probably they're just off camera, right? Doesn't matter. Bring your feet so they root down into the floor. And if you're sat cross-legged or sat with your legs out, you know, as long as you can find some length into your spine, then we all kind of, you know, just join in this position. And then go inwards and close your eyes if that feels okay, or just soften your gaze. You might bring your gaze down towards your feet and just settle just for a moment. So I'll be quiet for a minute and then we'll just check in with each other and just see how that minute was. And then if you had your eyes closed, or if your gaze was just soft or down towards your feet, then bring the eyes open or just bring your gaze up really gently. Beautiful. And then from here, a little bit of movement. We'll come back to that another minute in a moment, but let's move a little bit here. So with the hands on your knees or your hands on your thighs, if you're sat with me, take an inhale and then just sweep the arms all the way up. Maybe bring the hands together if the shoulders feel okay. Press the fingertips, the palms, and lengthen a little bit more. As you do that, you can have a generous bend in the elbows. Don't feel like you've got to lengthen the arms too much. Relax your shoulder blades down your back. Press your sit bones down into the surface that it's on, maybe a chair or maybe the floor. Take one more deep inhale. And then as you exhale, bring the hands all the way down. So you just float the hands down. So we're just kind of going to move like that with the breath. Okay. So inhale, sweep the arms all the way up. And then exhale, bring the hands all the way down. You can close the eyes or keep the gaze soft again. Inhale to lengthen. Exhale, bring the hands down. A couple more times. Inhale to bring the arms up. Exhale to float the arms down. So if I was watching you, I can see the movement of your breath with the movement of the arms. One more. Inhale to bring the arms up. And then exhale to bring the arms down. Nice. This time, bring the palms up on the knees or on the thighs. And then just drop your chin down towards your chest and just rock your chin a little side to side. So kind of free up the back of your neck. See how it feels. Yeah, these can be really, really tiny movements. In fact, they probably want to be quite small, even though it's super beneficial to open the head and the neck up like this. You've got to be gentle, especially if you feel tension. And then I invite you just to circle your head out. Pick a direction. If you want to get really funky with it, you might inhale as the head comes up. You might exhale as the chin falls down. And stay in the direction you're going in. Don't feel the need to kind of swap it out yet. You know, if there's any tight spots or juicy spots that require a little bit of breath, then pause and breathe into it. You know, it's a heavy structure. Your head's about 5 kilograms, so be gentle here. Don't feel like the faster you go, the better it is, because fortunately, yoga doesn't work that way. That's a good thing, right? And then come back the other way. See if you can stay connected to your breath. One way might feel a little different to the other. But if you're on the floor, if you're in a chair or on a stool like me, notice how your spine feels. Make sure the spine is still long and the breath is conscious. I realise I'm giving you a lot of things to work on. A couple more complete rotations. And then inhale, bring the head all the way back to center. The eyes are closed, gently open the eyes. And then on your next inhale, sweep the arms all the way back up. Nice. This time, keep the hands about shoulder width apart. And again, you can have a generous bend in the elbows and then just move a little side to side. Now, my stool just made a terrible cracking sound, which is usually the forerunner of it collapsing. So I don't want to stress you out, though. The worst thing in the world is the yoga teacher then stresses the students out. Just move a little side to side. So you might move with the breath. You might inhale as the arms come up. You might exhale as you come down. Don't worry about how deep this movement is. And then if you wanted to, you can always clasp the hands and then push the palms up towards the sky. And then as you exhale, round the spine and tuck the chin in. So like a seated cat-cow. Inhale to lengthen. And then exhale to round the spine. A couple more like that. Inhale to lengthen. Obviously, all of this can be done sat on the floor like we normally would. Inhale, bring the hands all the way back up. Nice. And then exhale, turn this into a twist. So left hand on the right knee, right hand behind. You might catch a hold of the back of the chair or the stool, or if you sat on the floor, just bring the right hand behind. Every inhale, find length. Every exhale into your twist. Breathe consciously here. So you're never quite static, little tiny movements. No need to move the head too much. Even though we have moved the head, there's no kind of need to move it too much here. Take one more round of breaths, a nice deep, rich inhale. And then take a full exhale. Nice. Inhale back to center and take an opportunity to bring the hands all the way back up. And then exhale, twist over towards the left. So the right hand comes onto the left knee, left hand comes behind, and that doesn't really matter whether you are on the floor or you're sat on a chair. A couple more rounds of breath. Beautiful. Inhale, come back to center. Inhale, sweep the arms all the way back up. This time, right hand, hold on to the left wrist. So right hand, left wrist, inhale to find length. Exhale just into a little side bend. Inhale back to center, left hand around the right wrist. Exhale into that side bend to the other side. Nice. Inhale to center, exhale, swap it out. Inhale to center, exhale to the other side. Inhale to center one more time, either side. Exhale. Inhale to center, swap the hands, and exhale to the other side. Inhale, bring the arms up. Exhale, bring the hands all the way back down. Hands back onto the knees, and then we'll spend another minute just with the breath. If you want to grab a drink at this point, go for it. If you're sat on the floor, you want to move your legs out a little bit, this is a good time to do it. And this next minute, what I'd like you to do is just think about your breath a little bit, or feel into your breath. Don't think about it. We don't want to think too much in yoga. We want to feel into our practice. So kind of really find that kind of like feeling within your breath. And hopefully your breath feels a little free and a little easeful. So in and out through the nose if it's available. And just be curious about how you breathe, okay? Okay, a minute from here, I'll be quiet. Beautiful, really nice. And then come with your eyes open if they were closed, or just bring your gaze up and just check in with that other minute. Did it feel different? Hopefully you felt a little calmer, a little bit more into your practice. We've done some movements, you're kind of a little bit more aware of your breath. And I think those moments where you just sit for a minute and you just pay attention. Sometimes it's like, you listen to sounds, not to the point where you obsess about a sound, but you're curious about the sounds that you hear, maybe something within the building you're in, or I can usually hear traffic noise on this side of my apartment or flat, and then I can hear the park noise, people on the park playing the other side, and then sometimes things in between. So just that little bit of curiosity, we anchor onto it, and it allows us to be present and stay within our practice. Okay, so let's do some more poses. So what I'll do is I'll demonstrate what the pose generally looks like on the floor, and then what we'll do is we'll do some versions on a chair. So if you want to stay down on the floor because that's what's working for you, then go for it. We're going to do child's pose, which is Sanskrit is balasana, and one that you're probably really familiar with. So let me just move this out of the way, give my stool a little fix while I do that. So in child's pose, what we generally do is if we're down on the floor, we'll bring the knees quite wide, and then we'll bring the big toes to touch. And then we bring the sit bones back onto the heels. And then this is kind of like, I was going to say the full version. It's not a full version, it's just a version of it. But you'll probably see this in yoga studios. And if you've practiced with me before, this will be kind of a pose that we come to at least once in a class. So this is a good shape to be. So if you want to stay here, go for it. You can always do this. You can bring a blanket between your sit bones and your feet. You can always bring a blanket underneath your head, or you can bring, your head onto your hands. Already for me, I did quite a bit of movement yesterday when I was up in Scotland, so I feel quite tight in my ankles. It's a kind of an area where I am really tight, so it's not the most comfortable. Everything else, luckily, today feels generally okay, but this blanket between my sit bones and my heels is really beneficial. So if this is where you want to stay, please do that, and breathe really deeply into the pose. Think about how you access your spine and your back. We've got a lot of our lungs in the back body. They're longer, physically in our back body, so we can breathe a little deeper. So as we sit here where we were for the rest of the class, if you're joining me, then this is a great place to be. This is mountain pose, right? So this is an adaptive mountain pose seated. So the first option we've got is we can bring our hands onto our knees, and we can kind of just cup the hands, and then we bring the hands over the cheeks. So here, already what I was doing there, I was coming right up onto my toes, but see if you can settle your feet down. In fact, let me just move my computer back a little bit so you can see my feet. That's going to be better. So you line your feet up. Imagine that you're practicing on a yoga mat and you're here. Okay, so this is one version. So you rest your head in your hands and you breathe really deeply here. You might close the eyes. And obviously, we're going to, hold the pose for a little longer. So this is option A, I guess. Option B is you cross your forearms over your knees. And then, you don't want to round the spine too much. You want to kind of find as much length in your spine. So you're resting on your forearms, clasping, your hands around the outside of your elbows, and you lower your head and you just drop your chin. So the chin drops down towards your chest. Really nice place to be. Or if you wanted to go option C and you're lucky enough to have a blanket or a bolster, this is a flat bolster. This is nice. You can use the bolster. So you place a soft prop, bolster or a blanket, something like that. And you just then lay your lap across your forearms, and then you gently rest your head on your forearms. And you lower your forehead all the way down. So your forehead is supported. So this is a nice place to be. You can make this higher, obviously, by maybe bringing a blanket on top if it feels like it's too much of a strain to get down. So you can be here. And this feels nice. There's some kind of softness. Number one, I always believe that kind of textures are really important as we practice. So there's kind of softness in the blanket and the bolster over my knees, but there's a little bit of warmth and comfort for me as well. So I could quite happily stay here for a few minutes. So I've given you, what, 3 or 4 options there. So whichever one you've found, see if you can commit to it. And if we're thinking about child's pose physically, then what we're looking at is like a nice gentle stretch and lengthening of the spine, but also a relaxation of the front of the body, the muscles of the front of the body, and then a little gentle massage of the internal organs, especially if you're using like a bolster like I've got at the moment. It says here that the stimulation, digestion and circulation, so it stimulates within the circulation of the body, the digestion, and it may ease headaches, it may ease tension in the neck, and it challenges insomnia. We think about the benefits mentally. It calms the mind, reduces fatigue and stress. And I've not talked about the eyes, but the eyes are either closed or they're just downwards towards your feet. And breathe deeply here. Really deep, long inhales, full, releasing exhales, whatever version, whether you're in a chair or stool, you're down on the ground. Maybe your deepest breaths of the class so far. And we'll hold for 1 more minute. I'll be quiet during this minute. Maybe take a couple more rounds of breath. And wherever you found yourself, whatever version you found yourself in, just slowly unravel, head lifts, and then if you sat with me on a chair or a stool, then just lengthen the spine. If you're down on the floor, then walk your hands back towards your knees and then just peel yourself back up. Nice. And the counter posture we'll do just Tadasana, which is mountain pose again. So this is mountain pose, sat on a chair, or you can always stand and you can do mountain pose stood up. So you find a mountain pose that works for you and take just a few rounds of breath. Nice deep inhales, full, releasing exhales. And maybe just notice how that feels. So I think that's a really nice example of a posture that we're very familiar with. If you've done quite a bit of yoga with me before, or you do yoga with other teachers, and it's a nice way to adapt it by sitting a little higher and using props. And don't think that props are cheats either. Props are there to aid our practice. There's a lot of yoga which I do. I couldn't do the postures if I didn't have those props. Let's do another pose. Have a little move around as I find this next pose, and we'll just kind of move a little bit. We've already done crescent moon pose, which is nice. We're not going to do dancer pose today. That's not quite where we want to be. Okay, let's do this one. So this is another one which is a tough pose. So pigeon pose. So pigeon pose. Let me show you the version. There's lots of different versions for pigeon. So I don't do a lot of it, to tell you the truth. You'll find, I guess, one which you'll find in a lot of hatha yoga or vinyasa yoga is this version here. So you have the right shin, doesn't matter, but we're doing the right leg first. So the right shin kind of square onto the top edge of your yoga mat. The left leg is nice and long. Some people kind of sit a little bit tall. Now it's really heavy on this right glute and this right hip. but I also feel it in my left hip. I can really feel kind of the front of my left hip pulling a little bit here. And then I guess what a lot of people eventually do is they end up down on the floor and they'll place their head on their hands or they'll place their head directly on the floor. And you'll probably stay here for a good amount of breaths because it's one of those poses that you really need to breathe into. There's a tendency here that you kind of roll the weight to the left with the right foot forward. So you kind of want to roll the weight into that right hip. Some people place a block or a blanket underneath the glute, this kind of area of the body. But as you can see, that's not going to be available for all of us, right? There's a lot of strain to get down here. The other version which we can do is we can do it on our backs, which is called sleeping pigeon. It's exactly the same position, but you cross the right foot over the left thigh because we're doing right foot. You grab around the back of the left leg and you're in this position. Same pose, different position, okay? Or some people just bring their left foot down and they push the right knee away. So here's another option. So there's 3 options. If you know pigeon, and you're comfortable getting into that shape, then go for it, okay? And we'll see how this works on this dodgy stool. So, pigeon pose. We begin, if you're with me on the chair, just sitting in mountain pose. And we've got lots of options here. So it's a big hip opener, right? So I'm just working out whether this stool's going to be all right. Probably is. So let's do right leg first, because that's what we did on the floor. If you want to go down here where I was, on your back or on your belly, perfect. If you suppose you know well, please settle into it. Take a lot of breaths in terms of like the breath needs to be deep and long. You breathe really deeply into that right hip and into that right glute. If you want to join me, option A, root the left foot down on the floor. So you kind of root the left foot down and then you bring the right foot next to the left foot. And then you come onto the blade edge of that right foot. So can you see that? Let me just move the camera down a little bit. I probably moved it the wrong way, didn't I, last time? Made the angle worse. So left foot down, okay? Just out in front. We start in mountain, feet lined up. And then we bring the right foot next to the left, come onto the blade edge of that right foot. And then you just try and keep this left leg as straight as it can be. You don't want it to kind of externally rotate like this, because then you end up in something like balasana, sorry, in reclined cobbler. So you don't want to open both legs out. So really root down through the 4 corners of that left foot. And then right on the blade edge of that right foot, and you can see this right knee is then opening out. So you can just place the hands here on the hips, or you can just place the hands on the floor. So there's a tendency, my left leg wants to kind of go this way, and I don't want it to. So I need to keep drawing that left leg in as I let the right leg just fall open to the right. Think about your alignment. You can see I'm a little bit twisted, but kind of that's where I am. So I can kind of bring the torso back. I'm leaning a little bit, but that's okay, right? It's good enough. This is where I am. Okay, so this is your first option. Second option, again, you can just have left foot down and then you cross the right foot over the left. Okay, and then again, root down through the 4 corners of the left foot and then just let this right knee fall open. It's a slightly bigger stretch, right? I feel it in the back of my leg as well. So this is your second option. So option 1 here, option 2, cross the leg, let the right leg fall open. Okay, option 3 is going to be this. So you're going to root down through the left leg and then you're going to bring the right foot over the left knee and you're here. This is a much deeper stretch for me, so I can seriously feel this in my right hip. It's a very big stretch, so I'll probably just want to stay here, up nice and tall. Second option would be I can just lean forward, and the more I lean forward, right hand on the right knee, left hand on the right foot. Okay, so now as I lean forward, there's a little bit more stretch here. So this is option C. So you gently just rest your left hand, the palm down in the inside of your left knee, and then you hinge forward at the hips. As you hinge forward, you'll feel it more into your right leg. Okay, so there's your next option. Pick one. I'm going to stay here because it does feel challenging, but it feels like a good stretch for me, and then breathe into it. We'll stay here for a few rounds of breath. Let's go through the benefits physically. Opens the hips and the femur. It opens the thighs and the chest. So, you've got this big opening through your chest. Lengthening the spine. So whether you're sitting upright or whether you're leaning forward, whether you're down on the floor, improves digestion and circulation. When you think about those benefits mentally, develops focus, because you need a lot of focus, right, to breathe into these shapes. Reduces stress, enhances calm. There's a lot of talk about hips, and they're very complicated structures. So, they bring up different things for different people. Eye focus is forward. So you can just kind of gaze forward, or you can just lower the seam of your eyes, it says here. I like that instruction. It's nice. Breathe it out. Take 2 more rounds of breath. And then when you're ready, slowly come all the way back up. If you were down on the floor, and it's a pose that you're very used to, you might tuck the toes on the left leg and then kick the right foot back and come into a 3-legged downward facing dog. Okay? If you want, give the leg a good shake out. If you're with me, then bring the feet out again, back into Tadasana. And you're just sat. And we'll just take a few breaths. Just remain still, and I'll remain quiet, and just let all of that sensation, all the sensations on that hip, just let it settle. And let's do a little counter posture, maybe a little back bend. If you're on the floor, you might be cross-legged, bring your feet out, and just kind of, that little movement we do where we knock the knees either side. If you're with me, maybe hold on to the back of your chair or your stool and just lengthen through your chest. Lean back just a little bit. You might even look up. So a little counter posture, a little bit of a back bend. As you exhale, you can round the spine and come forward a little bit, tuck the chin towards the sternum. Do that a couple of times. Inhale to lengthen, round, and then lengthen and come back, little back bend. Exhale, round the spine, and then one more like that. Inhale to lengthen, lean back, hold on to the back of your chair or stool, and then exhale to come back to a nice straight spine. Let's do that on the other side. So remember your options, okay? Right foot, root it down, nice and gentle, 4 corners of your feet. First option, left foot comes next to the right. You're on the blade edge of that left foot. Keep the right foot rooted and the right knee nice and central, so it's not externally or internally rotated. Then the left leg, it's a big external rotation, okay? You might feel this already. It's good enough, right? There's one option. Second option, you can just cross the left foot over the right. Sit tall. You might even lean forward a little bit. That can work for a lot of people. You can join me in this option where you cross the left foot over the right knee. You want a little flex in your toes just to protect the left knee. So left foot over the right knee. Remember, you can sit nice and tall. You can hold on to the shin. Don't have to get too fussy about this stuff. This is nice. You can kind of then lever forward and just rotate the pelvis forward. Keep rooting down through the right foot. So here's an option. Another option can be here. So you find, where you need to bring the hands. And for me, it's right in this outer hip, especially on my left hip. So more of my iliotibial band, the IT band, that's the kind of the part of the hip, or the structure of the hip that's the outside of the hip. And that can get really tight, especially if you, walk and run and cycle these repetitive movements. This little hinging forward, hopefully it keeps your spine nice and safe. It gives you a lot of room to breathe into. A couple more rounds of breath. And then when you're ready, slowly, if you were down with me, lengthen the spine, unravel. If you were here, or you uncross the feet, come back to mountain pose again, seated. Or if you were down on the floor, you might then just lift one leg, come into downward facing dog, give the legs a little shake out. And if you're doing this practice on the floor, then maybe come back to a seated position just for a few breaths. And take 3 or 4 more rounds of breath, 3 or 4 more rounds of breath. And we'll do at least one more pose here. And then if you had your eyes closed, come with your eyes open. Okay, so final one we'll probably do today before relaxation. We've got enough time. Is plank pose. And you're like, how do you do plank pose in the chair? There's loads of options here. So plank, you'll know. And again, there's lots of options if you're down on your mat. So this is how you will see, again, most planks in a class. Feet back, hip width apart. You press into the outer edges of your feet. And then you lengthen into your plank. You tuck your tailbone under, nice and strong through the arms. So this takes quite a lot, right? It's quite a strong pose. You want to kind of, find this position where it feels relatively stable. Now, one of the options which I give a lot is you drop your knees and then you're here. So this is perfectly reasonable. It's a really good position to be in, or here. So if you want to kind of stay in plank or come out of plank, then you can do that. You can work through those different options, okay? If you want to join me, we've got 3 options here. So lower body, you want your legs and your hips about hip width apart, I should say. And then the first option we're going to do is kind of, we sit nice and tall, so we're kind of in Tadasana. And then this is a really amazing workout for your wrists. We're just going to bring the fingertips up, nice big spread through the fingers. So imagine that if we were down on the floor, this is the same activation through the hands. Keep your elbows tucked in and then just push the palms forward. You can have your wrists actually resting on your thighs and then you just spread out. So it says here, you keep your elbows bent and press through the heels of your hands towards your knees. And then you just begin to hinge forward slightly from the hips. So as you do that, you hopefully then find that lengthening of your spine. If you sit too far back, you're not going to get that benefit. So as you tip forward, the spine lengthens just a little bit. So this is a really great place to be. You will build a lot of strength through your arms and through your hands here. Stay here if you want, or if you want to join me in the next version, it's not too different. You might give the hands a little shake out. And then what you're going to do, you're going to lift your hands up to chest height. So you bring your hands up and then you're going to keep your elbows bent and then you're going to hinge a little further forward from your hips. So you might take a deep inhale here, you find that alignment, and then as you exhale, you just hinge forward. Breathe it out. So I like this because, if you did want to then think, oh, you know what, I'm going to do a plank on the floor, this arrangement of hugging your elbows in and then kind of then relaxing your shoulder blades down your back, that's really great position to be, whether you're on the floor or you're doing this in a chair. Now what you can do here is you can lengthen your arms out to shoulder height and then you keep your elbows slightly bent, so you kind of lengthen the arms out and then you can begin to tip a little bit, so you hinge forward from the hips. So you can sit a little higher, or you can then begin to hinge forward, root the feet down, have the feet about, hip width apart, knees slightly internally rotated. So you can be here, and I'll do it from the side as well, so you can see, because a front view is probably not the greatest view here. So keep the elbows hugged in, and then you lengthen forward, and you just breathe here. So a slight internal rotation of the elbows. You don't want the elbows to be wide. And then just breathe it out here. Now, if you were on the floor and you were doing plank, you're probably knackered by now. So take a rest, come into child's pose. Whichever version you found yourself in, breathe into it. Elbows bent or the arms nice and straight. Benefits physically, let's go through them. Strengthens the arms, the wrists and the spine. It tones the abdominal and the core muscles. Fosters good postural alignment. So you saw, as I leant forward there, you could see that I wasn't trying to get too far forward, but there was a nice length through my spine. Mental benefits, it says here, develops confidence. And then eye focus is forward. So you just kind of gaze forwards. Couple more rounds of breath. Nice deep inhale. And a full exhale. Inhale, come back. And then give the hands and the arms a little shake. It's amazing, right? My arms really ache after that. Bring the hands onto the knees and shrug the shoulders up and down. Maybe one shoulder at a time. Kind of release any tension from your body. And then the counter pose here is sitting mountain pose again. So bring the hands onto the knees. Maybe close the eyes. If you were down on your mat, then come to a cross-leg position and find that perfect position now, Sukhasana. And we'll finish the practice today. Instead of Shavasana, we'll finish with a little bit of alternate nostril breathing. So however you are, however you're sat, bring your right hand up, block off your right nostril with your thumb, right thumb. Take an inhale through your left nostril. Close off your left nostril with your little finger or ring finger. Exhale through your right. Inhale through your right nostril. Close off right. Exhale through your left. Inhale through your left. Close off left. Exhale through your right. Inhale through your right. Close it off, switch. Exhale through your left. Inhale left. Switch. Exhale right. Inhale right. Switch. Exhale left. Then bring the hand down, palms face up. Let your breath come back to a nice, gentle, steady rhythm. And just notice the effects of your practice. And if you had your eyes closed, then very gently blink the eyes open. Give the fingers a little wriggle. Really beautiful work today. I'm just going to come down and come a little bit closer. I'm just going to check in with the comments and see if there was any. Yeah, I did. I killed my connection, but I'm back now. Hopefully you stayed with me. Sorry, I was trying to check out the comments and then I wasn't sure what happened. Let me know if you're interested and, that was something that was good for you. Then, you can always put a comment. I don't have to do it now, but I'll read the comments during the week. And it's something that we could probably do more of. I like that kind of practice, and it's a little bit of an experiment today, just looking at 3 core postures, ones that are probably one we're used to, but are quite hard to get into. And we'll probably look at that again next week in a little bit more detail. We'll pick some more postures. Let's finish the practice. Let's bring our hands to our heart. Notice the effects of your practice. Thank yourself for showing up today. And then just with a wholehearted bow, wish yourself well, wish everybody else well. Namaste. Thanks, you guys. It's really nice practicing with you today. Hopefully it did the trick, whatever version you found yourself in. Yeah, I'll see you all again next week. See you later. Take care. Bye now.